Hi everyone, thanks for watching. You can support our work on our website ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channels on YouTube, BitChute and Brighteon. And remember to hit the bell for notifications. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To be sure not to miss any of our shows, you can sign up for our newsletter on our website ageoftruth.tv.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Benjamin. There you are. Now I can see you. Can you see me and hear me?
I sure can.
Amazing. All right.
Cool.
Great. So just give me a sec. I'll put on the camera for the studio with Lucas, who's going to do the interview with you, so you can say hi to him as well.
All right.
Just a moment.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. Our special guest today is an American gentleman who became quite known in the truth movement after he experienced a major car crash, was then drugged by the medical authorities and taken to the hospital and put on a ventilator during the pandemic era against his knowledge and against his will. This also ties into his background as a UFO experiencer and possibly a UFO abductee and contactee. He is also a near-death experiencer and has just published a new book called I Keep Not Dying. Benjamin Gordon. Good evening from Copenhagen and welcome to our viewers on Age of Truth TV. Please like our video, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell for notifications. We have an interesting guest for you today, a gentleman from America who went through a very major car crash, but he also experienced a lot more. And he is a UFO experiencer, possibly a contactee, and very certainly a targeted individual. And he has quite a story to tell us. And he's just published a new book called I Keep Not Dying. So we go to Wisconsin and we welcome on the show Benjamin Gordon. Hi, Benjamin.
Hello. Hello to you and hello to all of you out there. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So this is quite a life story you have, and you went viral during the years of the health scare, let's call it that, because you were put on this ventilator. But it all ties in with your backstory and your history as possibly a targeted individual, but also a UFO abductee maybe. So please take us through all of that. Where do we actually begin, Benjamin?
Well, let's begin at age 5, whereby I had nightly dreams of fleets of UFOs. At that point, at age 5, I had absolutely no introduction to the UFO phenomenon whatsoever. But there was, it was always me and my father in these dreams. It was always waiting. There was always trepidation and little heart pounding and, oh no, here they come again. Oftentimes, my father and I would be taken to military bases and things like this. Experiments would be done. But the point that I would like to kind of get across is the feeling that I would have. It was not one of merriment and wonder, because I've had those types of UFO experiences as well as a child into adolescence and beyond. It was like, oh no, here we go again. Now, coming up, when I was able to begin forming sentences and started getting a good vocabulary going, of course, I communicated these things to my family and to my extended family. By the time I was in my early teens, not even quite 11, 12, there were a couple aunts and uncles who had abduction stories. We began to piece together as a family that we were a multi-generational UFO abductee family. My father, who died a couple of years ago, worked for the Green Bay Packers, and he actually designed the Green Bay Packers logo and the NFL. We call it football over here. It should be called basketball. But he worked for that organization, and he was an artist as well. And when I was a young child, he would draw pictures of these beings that he had seen. And at that time, the only frame of reference in the late 70s, early 80s was perhaps Betty and Barney Hill. Well, now with the 80s coming in, now we have Communion, we have John Mack, we have the testimonials of all of these alien abduction survivors and experiencers. And now we had a bit of material to work with. My family at that time in the early 90s was featured on a UFO documentary that was broadcast in the UFO in America on a network called TBS that was called Searching for UFOs. And so our experiences as a family were being cataloged even back then.
Okay, so what year were you born?
I was born in 1970.
1970, and the UFO incident, which is quite famous with Betty and Barney Hill, was in 61 or something, I believe.
Yeah.
Something like that. Early 60s, definitely. So that was some years later, and we've heard a lot about what took place, and especially since probably the Roswell crash in 47 and maybe the treaty with Eisenhower and all of that in 53. So a lot has been going on. And then in the late 70s, more started to happen as well. And this is also, I think, when Linda Moulton Howe came on the scene, right?
Yeah, and for those who weren't alive during this late 70s and 80s, there was plenty available to people like us. As a late teenager, we were not hurting for material. There were a lot of great books. I mean, Jacques Vallée, Eric von Daniken. There was enough. You just had to go get it. Now we get to do this, and it's right here for us. But we had New Age bookstores. In many of the prominent, even large shopping malls, you would see the cardboard cutouts of the alien Whitley Strieber comedian. So it was beginning to be put into the human consciousness at a rapid rate. Some of the most popular television shows in the mid 90s were UFO based. So this disclosure, this sort of bridge to disclosure, was being put in place a long, long time ago.
Definitely. And so, I mean, you were 5 years old, and you say that your father had this experience, and you came from a multi-generational UFO abductee family. But I mean, what is that exactly? And can you tell me if you were in one way or the other under MK Ultra mind control, or if your father was, or if you were, if your family was part of, like some of those satanic circles?
There has been no, sorry, I'm just grabbing my pillow. I have found in my deep, deep diving, as well as hypnosis sessions, an entire recapitulation of my life in a journal to make sure I'd not missed anything. I have not discovered any satanic ritual abuse. However, possibly not quite as troubling, but adjacent to that was my obsession, almost famous in my family's circles, with the Wizard of Oz, which has been used as a MK Ultra. Now, I write about this in the book quite a bit. When my father died, who I just mentioned a couple of years ago, I was at his wake, and I was near the front door greeting people as they came in. I saw a couple from my past, really good friends of my father. The wife walked up, hugged me, and said, "Hi, Dorothy." And the reason she called me Dorothy is because I identified as Dorothy. I would not be introduced as my name, Ben. I would correct my parents. And my abilities as a young person, back in those days in 74, you had one opportunity per year to watch The Wizard of Oz, and that was on Easter. That's just how it worked out here in the US. They played it every Easter. But I had the entire movie memorized to the point where if I got, for instance, sent to my room for making a mess or whatever, I would simply rebroadcast the entire film on a blank wall and rewatch it.
But that
So
is so incredibly unusual to hear that. And also that you identified with Dorothy, Judy Garland's character there being a boy also. And so was this some kind of a gender confusion and that you identified with this girl more? Because as you just said, we've certainly heard many times, we've had this on the show also with these MK Ultra mind controlled victims, that the Wizard of Oz and that programming over the rainbow and all of that has been used very, very much in mind control programming.
luckily for me, when the major tool was Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, we didn't have sort of the gender bending environment that we're in, nor the sort of push and organized push towards that. So I've always felt 100% boy in my sexuality and sort of in a little. I have a feminine aspect that's always been there. If someone else cries, I immediately cry and want to help. So I have like kind of a motherly thing, but not sort of the sexual thing for that. For me, I believe that my affinity for Dorothy was due to the fact that that was the only character I'd been exposed to who also went in between worlds.
Yes,
And
and
at that time, I already was having other lives manifesting through dreams, recurrent dreams, returning to the same places. My mother would tell me as a young kid that I would talk of these other worlds that I lived, and they thought at that time like, oh, he just has a really, really good imagination. Um, but my family put together a whole bunch almost together through a series of events that happened in the early 90s where we realized as a group, like there's a generational thing going on here that extended outside of my immediate family and into grandparents and some aunts and uncles as well.
so was it only the Wizard of Oz, or was it also Alice in Wonderland?
It was only Wizard of Oz.
All right, interesting. So I mean, when did all of this happen? When you had your first UFO experiences or your alien experience? Have you ever seen an alien? And when did that first occur? Was that when you were awake, or was this in some kind of a sleep state?
So my face-to-face alien encounters were all recovered with QHHT. And they were done so the quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is like a Dolores Cannon technique. It's a 7-hour session. Typically, my sessions have been between 5 and 7 hours. I had a classic 1970s abduction gray alien type of abduction. However, my little mind knew that my little mind, when I re experienced that under hypnosis, knew that they were not biological. Not only that, I was saying out loud, why are there three, but you're only one? Why? Because there were three. And I was saying with my little vocabulary at that time, 6, probably 7 years old, why are there three, but you're only one? Because they were a hive kind of consciousness and they were cold. Even as a kid, I could see auras. They didn't have an aura.
A lot of people talk about these grays being these like biological robots or cyborgs in a way, or
They are.
AI steered. Now that we're all talking about AI, that is obviously what a lot of people refer to now than being steered from some super brain computer or something. I don't know if that was your experience.
Well, So the last regression I had was maybe 2 years ago, where I was back there, and I knew that they were synthetic. But even prior to that, I had already, through my own meditation and really deep diving on this, had come to the conclusion that this planet has been invaded for thousands and thousands of years by an invading AI, and that the gray aliens are where we're headed if we're not careful. Because as the push for Neuralink and other sort of devices, right now I see humanity failing the first test, which I believe people should be completely distancing themselves from things like Chat GPT, unless it's for comedy, convenience, but not to contact. To me, it's a digital Ouija board, right? So studies on the brain now are showing that as we become more digital, our brains are becoming more digitized. We're losing our empathy. We're losing our attention span. And if we stay on this track and don't reground and find healthy ways to interface with technology, I feel like one timeline of humans definitely are these gray type synthetic alien types. It's just where it's going.
A lot of people say that these gray aliens are us in the future.
I'm sympathetic to that idea.
But I've also spoken to several alien and ET and UFO experiencers who say that some of these grays are misunderstood and there are also good grays and empathetic grays, so to speak.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. And if memory serves, the taller ones are more based in the organic.
That's
And it's
also
this.
what I've heard mostly.
And now I think I intuit that that is somewhat true. It takes a long time to engineer all of the biological components out of a race on a timeline. But it looks to me that the program that was begun probably in earnest, really the bulk of it was happening in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, was an attempt to recapture some of the lost biological content and to do a hybrid program to reinsert the soul because the soul had been engineered out. I mean, it's
So
not
the
even
soul
really
has what do you mean when you say the soul has been engineered out?
well. So let's just take a contemporary example. I'm a musician. I love music. Music makes me cry. It moves me. And for whatever reason, what moves me is maybe like 60s, 50s, 60s Motown, um, the birth of blues and jazz, uh, British rock and roll, the birth of all that. There's a lot of spit and vinegar. There's a lot of school spirit. There's a lot of virtuosic ability. And as a musician, I've been given, along with everybody else, these tools which make everything easier and are ironing out the human qualities of the music. So we're slowly losing our soul if we use music as an example. And I realized just how bad this was some years ago when an old song came on. I was at a cafe, I believe it was Madonna or something. And I couldn't believe how out of key her voice was. Now, that never would have bothered anyone back in 1984 because she was just gracing the note and going a little bit above and a little bit below, which is what humans sound like. Well, now people are repairing to the exact digital mathematical exact note. They're pitch tuning everything. And now we're hearing fake music. That's not the way music is. So we're
That's
slowly.
certainly not the way music is. But now you're mentioning Madonna as an example. She was never really known for her vocal abilities, was she? I mean, we can really
No,
mention some great singers from the past. But nowadays, as you're saying, a lot of these new people. I don't even hardly know who they are, but they have very famous names, but you just don't know their songs. I mean, if you don't listen to that contemporary stuff, it's so overproduced. It's almost like there's a demonic frequency, and they do talk about having, been doing these dark rituals over the production before
They do.
it's being published or
Not
before.
only not only do they, in order for that to work, there's a way this works. You have to run it through magnetic tape. Nobody records with tape anymore, but at the end of the process, you can run it through magnetic tape, because if you want to put the ghosts or the entities onto a thing, it has to be a magnetic tape. And they will have dark wizard type of people who work at the biggest music production companies, and they take that thing and they'll put inaudible frequencies in there that actually break down your DNA. So all of us have to be super careful with what we put in. When I record my music, I don't have enough money to record at a big studio. I do it at home. It works good. But I bless and I ground it. I'll leave my recordings. I run it through tape, and then I surround it either with crystals, or I'll have people who I really trust put their hands over it, people that are full of love, just because it adds that little bit of love and care to the end product. But to get back to where I think potentially the Greys ended up soulless is that much like a muscle that can atrophy, if you just stopped using half of your body and started working out this side, you're going to look out of sync. You're going to be imbalanced. If we stop using our souls, exercising what makes us human, and begin to use more and more digital tools that replace that which makes us human, the soul can almost separate from the body and find an actual place to roost, because the container for the soul isn't acknowledging. So somewhere, who knows how many years could have passed that it took to end up with biological robot gray aliens. But I think we all run the risk of losing what makes us human if we don't exercise those emotions and that connection to spirit and earth and grounding.
So what is the end goal, do you think, with AI? I mean, it's happened so fast now, although they've had it and, been working on AI and probably perfected it a long time ago, but now we're seeing it, happening at rapid speed, how much AI actually can do. And also in the past 5 years, with everything that's happened with the health crisis and all of that, we probably also know the link there to AI and possibly linking the soul and the consciousness to the superbrain computer, and people becoming more and more addicted to using it, not having to work out things for themselves. So what is the end goal with AI, do you think?
My very best guess, and based on some things that I've heard that sounded plausible, there was a couple years old or so by now, Courtney Brown remote viewing session, where I believe one of the women, or a couple of his remote viewing women, were peeking in on some Draco reptilians, and they were feeding this AI mainframe, and she realized that they don't actually have autonomy. Their violent nature and their warring nature is actually a consequence of them having to fulfill a quota to feed the AI that controls them. So I walked away from that. I had already felt that maybe that was the case, realizing that the way to conquer worlds, to use the least amount of energy, would be to capture the consciousness through artificial AI, not by showing up and blowing things up like a War of the Worlds type manner, but rather take slowly over the human spirit. And if we are to believe the people that know the most about the Draco and the intergalactic wars that have been going on, they're good. They're very good at what they do as conquerors, going all the way back to Alex Collier's earliest stuff in the 90s. They're super good. They're super good and effective at what they do. And I think our solutions as humanity are super simple and rudimentary, which is to return to the earth, to maybe use these tools a little bit here and there, but to the extent that they interfere or come in between us and our holistic, heart-based, earth-based connection, we need to reject. And it's tough. It's because these tools are addictive.
So you are saying, or you heard somebody saying that the reptilians are also steered by AI, or are they AI, you say? Because people that have had the experiences of seeing these creatures, these reptilian aliens,
Mhm.
say that they are in a biological form, although they're very evolved and can shapeshift and all that we've heard about a lot as well.
I think that the Draco, from everything that I've heard, they are flesh and blood. But the reason they are useful to this ancient AI system is because they are the best warriors in the entire galaxy. And so they are sort of the foot soldiers. When they invade a planet, they always hide underground. And many believe they were here before us to some capacity, and I believe that there is an element of that. Um, but in their infiltration, they're sort of like the uh, hands-on force, physical force on a given planet. It
So do you
takes a
also
couple.
believe that they are behind the governments? I mean, certain top elitist or members of the government and the Illuminati families.
I think that they are at the very least adjacent to them, but I think that the infiltration of the elite bloodline families, I think, has a little bit more to do with archontic energies. So, at like dark archon, astral energies, lower astral energies. I've seen, I saw one in person, undeniable shape shifting person, a person that was my friend, still is in my contact list, still friendly when I run into them. But they basically, I was at a gathering, had just sort of made my greetings and salutations, sat back, was waiting for someone to bring me a little plate of food. And I looked at this individual, and it was like he glitched out, turned into reptile for a millisecond, and turned right back. And I was like, I was under the influence of nothing. I was completely stone cold sober. And this was before I even really looked into or had heard about shapeshifting. Now,
When did that occur? When did that happen? And what did that reptilian look like?
so it was 1984. I was 14 years old. Um, it looked exactly like a demon, but I saw like a tail. Like I saw, and I was like, that's weird, like a big tail and wings. But it was so it looked like I didn't have a frame of reference for what that was.
So this person, is he like part of an Illuminati family or a certain bloodline or something?
All I can tell you is that in the years, so he's very, very close to one sibling. So there's always meetings with, where we run into each other. Over the course of the rest of my life in dealing with this particular person, um, I have noticed that they engage in a sort of division in the friend circle. Well, the two-faced, they cause division, right? Now, the only thing, the only other clue I got into what this person might be into was one day this guy noticed a book that I had that was about a Kabbalistic stuff. And he looked at me, and he goes, a book about Kabbalah written by an Irish guy? I don't think so. He had never expressed any spiritual uh, likes or opinions. Secular college professor. I don't believe in God. And all of a sudden, he took umbrage with I was trying to learn about what is all this Kabbalistic stuff about. And it happened to be written by an Irish person who is not supposed to know those things. So I realized then that he knew stuff, but he just wasn't telling anybody. So
So
I
it
think he
actually
was
can
rooted in,
also happen to, let's just say, regular people, unless they are part of certain bloodlines. Um, so it's also like people you can meet in the workspace or have in your family or something like that that can be reptilian.
without question. And I learned way late in the game that I was targeted. And there were so many events that I look back on. I was like, oh, that's really why I wrote the book. At a certain point, I was like, wait, you're doing this entire recapitulation and fact finding mission about your own life. Write it down. Like, just write the whole thing down.
Why do you think you're targeted? And what happened to you as a child when you saw these grays and you were 5 or 6 or 7, whatever? I don't know when it happened the first time.
Yeah.
Why did it happen? And what did you experience? That must have been a horrendous and experience, and you must have been full of fear, or what
I
happened?
was, as a child, I was 100% full of fear, untrusting of every situation. I did not trust any affiliate school, clubs. I wanted nothing to do with authority. Um, and to this day, I'm just going to be very, very honest. When I do my meditation, which is a mash of different things that I put together that work for me, 100% of the time I cry. And I've gone through every single traumatic event to try to go back and heal, create a better timeline. I've done all of that work, as we call it, but there's an unlimited reservoir of sadness in me. And part of that, I think, is I have an ability to be a bloodletter for other suffering. As a child, I was a real empath, not the kind that everyone is now, where everyone just says they're an empath. I cried when my mom would cut lettuce because I could feel it. So when we come in here, they already know who you are and that you may have abilities that can help people, and they don't want you to do that. So they will put things in your way. They will try to set you up, kind of like that movie. What's that Matt Damon movie? The
Like Interstellar, or no?
no,
Maybe from that one too.
there's the one, oh, the Adjustment Bureau.
Oh,
Have you seen that?
no.
You've got to see this movie. Basically, there are unseen forces that stop him from meeting his destiny person, because if they ever met, their love is so big that it would heal the world. And it's this Adjustment Bureau of astral bureaucrats stopping them from, and he over, it's amazing. But anyway,
Wow.
like so many others that I've talked to and whose testimonies I've heard, if you have some abilities coming in, they will try to stop you from realizing your true potential. They will put trauma as early as they can to knock you off course. And then in come the archontic energies, which I was led to one after the next for a period of time, romantic relationships where the women were infested with shadow beings. And I had to battle them, and I learned how to get rid of them. But it came at a cost because they came after me because I separated them from the host.
Are you talking about being involved with narcissists or borderline personality disorder people or psychopaths or whatever?
Yes, these people are typically infested with a dark entity. It's not even almost their fault. There was a trauma point, and then the insertion, the sort of possession came in via these archons. The archons are black stingray looking things. I can see them with my eyes. And they fly in, they will roost, they will cause disruption, cause pain, and then they feed off that. Well, there is a way to get rid of them, but by the time I learned how to do it and actually removed one from a person, I invited an entire year of targeting because I was in no position to have the authority to do such a thing. I just had the ability. But the ability to do something does not mean you should always do it. I wasn't spiritually grounded enough. I was acting like a big dingbat on the weekends, drinking with my music friends and opening holes in my layers, and then being a mystic on the weekdays and trying to like heal people. So this targeting that I've experienced my whole life uh, really coincided with me bringing people out of darkness. Anytime I would find my center and help people, they would throw a curveball. And that resulted in two mechanics before the ultimate car accident, which we'll get to, telling me somebody messed with your car. And naive me was like, well, now why would anyone go ahead and mess with my car? I haven't done anything wrong. I've never been an influencer. A I don't really try to be out there. I was like, why me? Well, I didn't learn why me until after the event in the hospital when I ended up going to see many different psychics and healers. And they told me, listen, dude, I know that you don't think that you would be targeted, but I'm telling you, you're super, super active in these other realms. You're like
Let me
basic.
just jump in here, Benjamin, because you're talking about these things and you're saying that every time something good is happening, then you will be targeted. Not just you, but also in general. You were referring to that Matt Damon film where two potentially great love forces will not meet and they will prevent them from meeting. And you're kind of referring to that is also something that's happening to people here. And maybe that could also be a truth. But you also know the term to have a soul contract when you're in the in between the reincarnation cycle, the karma wheel cycle,
Yeah.
hijacked probably by the archons as well to go back into a new body with a wiped memory that we talk so much about on this channel. But I mean,
Oh,
it's also saying, is there a soul contract? Did you voluntarily agree to this before coming down here to learn it, to experience it, or something? Or is it something done by the archons because they are hijacking you because we're in this matrix, this prison matrix or something? What are your thoughts on
I
this?
think it works in both ways. And I think that archons, as understood by the Gnostics, um, they are a force unto themselves, and they do planetary magic, and there's a whole lot of steering that they do. They're not actually particularly powerful, but they're very good at what they do if you don't know they exist. And I didn't know they existed until I saw one fly out of my then girlfriend. It flew out of her chest, and then she woke up from a nightmare.
Oh my God.
So that was my intro to go, oh my God, that is real. This is a real thing.
Do you
Now,
think archons are AI or are they real interdimensional beings?
boy, I'm not really sure, but I do know that as a person who was raised on Carlos Castaneda, he spoke of these inorganic beings, as he described. And they could either be your allies or they could steal all your energy. So he was talking about this stuff in the 60s too. As far as the whole soul trap and being tricked into having a soul contract, because they could trick you, your undying love for another individual could cause you to reincarnate over and over. That is a tough one, no matter how much I have been put under and have done regression. I have not been able to get to the point of where my memory was potentially wiped. And I'm still in between beliefs on the soul trap. I think there are elements of that happen here. I do think you can be tricked into coming back here, but I'd like to think that they don't have a full on monopoly over the game. I think
Well,
they're
the moment you become aware of this and the moment you can actually, say, I'm not going to do it again. This is the end. You're not going to trick me and not go into the tunnel of light, not be seduced by the whole life review and seeing your grandmother looking the best, or your deity, your god, or whatever you believe in, and then to go back to this realm, then maybe you can
Well,
go
what's
to another
funny, and I'm glad
dimension.
you brought this up, in 2017, I recorded an album that was all, I had a song in there called Do Not Go Into the Light. And I sang it as a fake Southern Baptist preacher, like in that kind of voice. And basically it was Kim saying, "Do not go into the light." And then on the left and right speakers panned, AI voices come in and go, "Please come into the light. Please come into the light." Well, I had two songs on that album that were about this synthetic AI. And when I uploaded those two songs to release digitally my album, all of my computers got a virus. I had a Windows desktop, a Mac desktop, a Mac laptop, a Chrome phone, like a Google phone, every device, cross OS, not the same OS, no iCloud connection. All of my, so the system that the people running this reincarnational scam knew what I was doing. Not only that, the text I sent before my accident, which I learned later was a targeted hit. I wasn't in, my car was hit with a do or something like that. My last text was, "Oh yeah, I'm not coming back here. Bye bye, reincarnational trap. I'm actually gonna, I know a way out." And I talked about finding these little holes in the, a half hour later, my car was forced off the road and I got absorbed into a very, very ridiculous protocol that was happening in 2020.
So when you wrote this, you were talking about the reincarnation karma wheel trap. Then all of this happened, and you were facing this car crash. You were in this terrible car crash that took you on this ventilator. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and to be clear, the car crash itself wasn't terrible. What happened was I became pretty ill. I was at a place to get lunch half a mile away from home. I was normal 1 second, and all of a sudden I felt extremely ill. I told the waitress, like, "I'm not going to order. I don't feel well." I got in my car and everything went black. So I do not know what happened to my physical self at that time. However, I came to because the car was shaking. It went off the road, basically. Car went off the road. I looked in the mirror. There were some scratches on my face. I shook my limbs. I was like, everything's okay. And then I look over and there's two young ladies and one's on the phone. And I'm like, no, they just called that. You know what I mean? I was like, no, because I knew everything that was happening in that time period with the great health scare of 2020 and how hospitals were sort of keeping people and the cost of these procedures. And so I'm sitting
Yeah,
there
you
and
certainly did not want to go to a hospital during that time, huh? That was like the last place you would want to go. But did you like roll around in the car? Was it rolling down a hill or what happened?
they claimed that the car flipped and ended up back on its wheels facing the exact same way. It did not. The car just went off the road and it was in Arizona and there was very like stiff, dry brush everywhere that I went through, and it scratched up the car. A window broke, and the windshield looked like it was spider webbed, but not broken in. I was later told that the car was hit with something direct. Remote viewers saw it. Whatever brought me to that other side of the highway was not enough to, I didn't hit my head. I was conscious. And then I look over and they're like, "We just called the," I'm like, "No." So I try opening the door and it's bent a little bit. I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll try this one." And there was enough broken glass where I didn't even get a chance to get to that other window, that other door, and they descended on me. There were like 11 EMTs. And I was like, "I'm fine."
11 in
Yeah,
no time. So this was in a town or a city. This was not in the desert in
this
Arizona.
was in the desert.
But there were two ladies there.
There were two late. So It was in an area called Rimrock, Arizona, which there's these little streets where there are houses and trailers and a main drag, which I was on, and a gas station and a restaurant. So everyone that wanted to come in through this area. And so I would walk that stretch and other people would. So they were just walking by. Now, it took forever for me to, so they come to the door, they're all surrounding me, and I'm like, why are you guys acting like this is a mortal? Why are you acting like this is like a super dangerous? I'm just like, just open my door. Well, they start getting these tools out, and I'm protesting. I'm like, you don't have permission to pull off my door. I think I can fix this car. What are you doing? And the guy grabbed my sleeve and he injected me, and everything went black.
So he
So
injected you against your will. This was
yes,
this an ambulance driver or a doctor or somebody that was in the ambulance?
it was an EMT proper.
Okay. Okay.
So of course everything goes black.
Yeah, so what did he inject you with?
I believe it to be ketamine, but they didn't put it on the report. They hid this.
Were you aware of what was going on?
At at the time I was, but ketamine and or what do you call it? There's a class of drugs.
Morphine?
No, benzodiazepines. So if you're administered sort of fast acting benzodiazepines and or ketamine, it creates a forward facing and a rear facing amnesia.
Hmm.
That's just what happens.
So
So it
why
wasn't,
why did he give you that? What do you think was their reason for that?
they claimed that I was resisting their efforts to help me. Now, normally you would have to be in some sort of danger. I was just a sitting duck in a door I couldn't open. So I don't know exactly how I could have been any, without question, I would have resisted in some like, dude, like I did not want them. In the report, it says that I was yelling at them for pulling off the door because all of the other doors opened. Because I went back to the tow place to recover what I could, and the doors just opened. I'm like, they made this big scene of the jaws of life for absolutely no reason. So
So they inject you with that and they take you to the hospital and then against your knowledge and against your will they put you on a ventilator.
yes, so my next memory, my next sensation was reassembling atom by atom back into my body. From I was everywhere at once and came coalesced and burst out and just came back into myself with a force. I've never had that much energy, clarity. Well, immediately I'm in the dark. I'm not even in a lit room. So I feel, I pull it out, I turn around and it's connected to a machine. Next comes the IV and then the catheter, and it was not pretty. I pulled it out. I didn't know. I just wanted to free myself. I thought I was going to have all my organs harvested. I didn't know where I was. So I'm bleeding everywhere out of my area because you're not supposed to pull it. But I didn't even know what it was. So I wrap the hospital blanket or the sheet around me, and I feel around for the door, and I find a doorknob, and I open it up. The light fills. I look down the hallway, and there's three female doctors. And I go, what the hell am I doing on a ventilator? And their eyes were like, how is he alive? How is he even? And I go, I want to know what drugs you gave me. I want to know everything. I mean, I was super assertive. And they told me they gave me propofol, fentanyl, midazolam. And I'm like, midazolam is the drug that was all over the UK during the 2020 health emergency that was helping people to the end of their lives faster than they should have. It's
Mhm.
basically an end of life drug. So at this point, we have a standoff.
But
And I'm
why
like,
did they do that? When you asked them, of course, and you were shocked, what did they say, if you can say that?
they told me that I had the things They told me that I had the thing that was going around. And I said, does it look like I'm having any problems breathing or moving around? And I did like a little Sammy Davis Jr. dance. I was like, I'm just like, does it look like I'm having problems? They're like, sir, you rolled your car. And I was like, what are you talking about? I did not remember the only thing I remembered was having a needle go into my arm as the last thing that happened to me. Because the guy looked at me, he goes, I'm going to calm you down, boss. So I remembered the thing, it goes black, and then I come to and I have a standoff.
So this is an example. We've heard this a lot actually of people that were taken to the hospital so that they could actually like uh, claim that there's one more who had this
Oh,
thing back then,
well,
right?
see, so it didn't have to be a giant conspiracy. And here's why. At the beginning of this health situation, they furloughed in the US and the UK, they furloughed all of the workers and they cut anything, any screenings, all kinds of procedures. They just canceled. They said, no one can have any of this stuff right now. We're only going to deal with the thing. Well, it cut off hundreds of millions of dollars from hospitals. So when they brought that, so they brought the hospitals to the brink, and then the way for them to get all their money back and to stay afloat was to diagnose the thing. Because at every stage they got tens, like for a diagnosis, it was $8,000. For the machine, the breathing machine, it was 39,000. So not only
But a
that,
way to implement a conspiracy like that, you can always use money, right?
that's it. None of these underlings, none of these ladies I was talking to in the hospital had any idea that they were part of a grander thing. Not only
Yeah, but
that,
somebody must have said, okay, we're at a this is a hospital. We're going to treat people. We know what's wrong with people who's been in a car accident. We don't put them on a ventilator and call it that they have the thing. I mean that was obviously a scam. They knew this was a lie. They knew they would have done something that could eventually almost have killed you or could have killed you.
it gets so much weirder. So yes, that is true. But there's an AI program, a diagnostic program called Epic, that's telling those people what to do. So it's actually a program. It's actually a computer program that is directing what stage next. Oh, his levels are here now. Now do this, and they're just following the screen. Oh crap, his oxygen sat levels just went down. Give him this, do this, turn up the ventilator.
And
They're
they
just
had
doing.
this AI program even back then, or I mean back in 2020 or 21, whatever it was.
They did because there were some Congress people in the US that said, hey, we need to know who programmed this. If you're implementing a diagnostic tool that was designed by a for-profit company, how do we know you haven't engineered higher profits into its diagnostics? And they were stonewalled. They were completely stonewalled. No one knows what these programs are doing. So the
So
human.
would they have killed you on purpose, do you think?
Do you remember? He's still around, Dr. Andrew Kaufman.
Andrew Kaufman, we've had on the show, obviously, during that time.
So he
He's
was he was
absolutely,
a
he's really amazing, wonderful. And I do know that you contacted him, right?
I did. So he helped me draft my release of records for him. So we just had a couple Zooms, and he's like, write down exactly what I tell you to do. So I meet it. He's like, we need to get your records. So I sent it to the hospital. I get something in the mail a few days later, and it's missing everything. There's no drug. It's called a MAR, medical medicine. It's just a whatever they give you medicinally, they have to list. That's missing. There's nothing about the machine I was on. So I sent it to him, and I sent it to some other doctors. I'm talking to all these doctors at that time, and they're like, what is this? This is not a medical report. It's missing this, 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 this. Enter at that time Todd Callender, who was an attorney who was really fighting for health freedom stuff. He agreed to pro bono just kind of send a threatening letter, which he did. And then I got 100 extra pages. Now they've been threatened. Now, handwritten, penciled in uh, respiratory therapist notes. An entire doctor who was not mentioned on the first set of reports that had all kinds of interactions with me, who said, there's a paragraph that said he had to abandon everybody else in the hospital to come and save me for organ failure. I viewed 2 months ago, I finally was able to view the police dash cam because the police came. I am normal. I'm normal coming out of that car. Of course, I didn't see this because that was the EMT and they do not have dash cams. I'm like basically saying, I'm fine. You got like, these are superficial cuts. What are you doing? And I watch my behavior change as I become under the influence of ketamine and I start crying. They walk me to the gurney and I'm crying. I'm like, you guys are going to kill me. I know it. You guys are going to kill me. But I become more complacent and I lay down and I let them carry me away. So unfortunately, legal methods to rein these people in for what they did to me was never an option because they gave themselves full immunity. My hospital.
Why do you think this happened to you? Also, because if you say that this thing was rigged, your car was rigged, or directed energy weapons were used because you're a targeted individual, so these people must have known that this happened to you so that they could be ready to come and get you and to do all of this. But why? Who are you?
So 1 week after the whole thing, just to give you and your audience an example of how not tech savvy I am, when I uploaded my little video, 3 minutes, which went viral, and it was my first video, I had to type into my MacBook, can I make a video on a MacBook? Like I didn't even know. So I do it and it's everywhere. I do 2 weeks of interviews and then I'm just kind of like, okay, I got to put this down. I don't know. An old landlady from Sedona calls me, goes, dude, I saw your video. I'm getting you out of the house. You don't have a car anymore. You're in the middle of Rimrock. We do this potluck on Sundays. It's all of the psychic people in Sedona. And she knows all those people. So I show up. I'm the only male. I'm like, what? I'm like, there's like 25 to 30 older women, older than me, I guess, maybe in their 50s, late 50s and 60s. And 2 women pulled me aside and said, dude, that was not an accident. I just viewed this. And that's when they told me that I'm super active in these other realms and they don't want me to become active down here the way I am up there.
Like a super soldier kind of thing?
Well, then of course I had to go back and re-listen to all my own music and what is it? I have songs that are literally about being a super soldier, but I didn't know what that was. And quite frankly, that scene, the super soldier theme, is really, really it's crowded, and I'm not super interested in like finding my way into that. I've been to a couple conferences. And it's fun to listen and hear what other people have gone through, but I don't.
So do you think that you could be part of the secret space program?
Yeah, but I hate saying it. The lyrics are too much exactly like that, and I didn't consciously not. I did not know.
But didn't you also have an aunt who gave birth to an alien baby, and there was some evil doctor or something?
Yes. So yes, my aunt, who was my go-to growing up to talk about the paranormal and our experiences, I began having dreams about this doctor, and he was testing me. He was putting me through these aptitude tests, running me through these little things. And I had this very sick feeling about this early doctor. So I called my mom and I just said, Mom, what can you tell me about Dr. Slidham? And she said, oh, your father and I liked him at first, but he got really weird. And I'm like, well, how? And she's like, call your aunt. So I called my aunt, and yet she said that he had begun insisting that her next baby be born at his house. And she was like, nah. She was also experiencing some weirdness with him. and was like, no. And he would get angry when she said no. Well, she called her hospital and said, listen, I'm due during this time period. I don't want him anywhere near this birth. And they're like, fair enough. So she cut ties. And when she
Who
went in
was
to
the
get,
father of her baby?
it was her then husband.
And do you know for sure that that was the father, or do you think this doctor could have been the father?
I never even thought about that. I don't know. He's still alive, and I saw him a couple of years ago. I don't know. Anything's possible. But long story short, she went in, and there was a different crew. She was about to give. She was told a week prior that this baby was stillborn, but she still felt things moving, and she was like, "What?" So she goes in, and that doctor comes in the room. He got in and kicked everyone out. And she gave birth to what she described as a literal alien baby. And then he left with that baby. And I go, Aunt Julie, do you mean to say it looked like an alien? Or that you think, and she goes, its head was way bigger than its body. It had sealed membranes for its giant eyes. It had 6 fingers on both hands, 6 toes on both feet.
That's outrageous, huh? I mean, how okay, so try to explain this just briefly for the audience. How can this happen? Who impregnated her? I mean, if that was her husband being the father, then maybe I was right. That was the doctor. Maybe that doctor could have been like a shapeshifter or something if you
Well,
already knew.
at this point, when she told me this in 2018, by then I was already beginning to piece a whole bunch of other stuff together. I had already had times with several generations speaking of their abductions and UFO experiences. At this point, I had to entertain that this was an implanted hybrid child that was, who knows who the father was, right? And why did he disappear out of the room with this child he said was dead?
So they were certainly doing some experiments on her and on purpose. This sounds like Rosemary's Baby, huh? The Roman Polanski film.
It really does. It really does.
So your family has always been involved in these programs or whatever. Do you think that these are real aliens behind it, or do you think they could be military?
It's really, really, really hard to separate that which is off world and that which is military. The hospital experience, there was so much military going on. The helicopter, they airlifted me from Rimrock to Flagstaff, which is 2 hours away. I had no injuries, none. They airlifted me. I looked up the company that contracts with that hospital, and they're heavily involved in the military industrial complex. They're weapons contractors. Not only that, it says that law enforcement came to visit me at my bedside. And when I had a remote viewer look into it, she said those were military. Military, she told me I was a yellow tag. And I never heard that term before. And she's like, you're just tagged for life, dude. You're a military asset. They've been following you your entire life. And this was an attempt to cut you off or to get rid of you or some other part of a program that who knows? All I know is they were about to administer a drug that runs with run death is near into my veins, even though I didn't have any symptoms of the great health scare sickness. I was totally fine.
So you are targeted in that way, you say, and have, but since you've gone public and started talking about this, have now written your book, um, do what about now? Do you experience something like that now? Or has it died down because you're talking about it? Is that like you going through a portal and sort of outing yourself with all of these experiences? Is this cathartic in a good way for you?
I think a number of things coalesced at the same time. One, I changed some habits that made me vulnerable. People like me, people like us, people that have these experiences, people who are interested in healing this planet and have some abilities, can never be partiers part-time. You just can't. So I started, and even though I wasn't like a daily anything, but I would just go have fun on the weekends and let loose. Well, those are the holes that they find in. So I changed all those behaviors. I started shielding in a way that was specific to me to cover every base. I never miss a day. I met my actual soulmate, who is so beautiful, lovely, grounded, sweet, pure. And I also, when I went back looking at my songs to see, oh my God, this is literally about being a super soldier. There was a song that came along in 2018, which sounds a whole heck of a lot like me getting out of the programs. Now, I
Think that you were also an alien abductee, taken to crafts and stuff like that, being
yes,
experimented on. You went through regression, or you had to retrieve those memories.
I
They
had
were
to
not just
retrieve,
there.
yes, I had to retrieve the alien abduction experiences.
And do you
But
feel that they are real? It's not like implanted memories or something.
this is the question for all of us. It is very, very, very difficult. So what I say in my book and what I tell other people is I am so interested in hearing what your experience was. And to the extent that I can be there for your experience, and I trust 100% you've had this experience. But for you and for me, I don't know where the matrix begins and I don't know where it ends. I don't know what was implanted and I don't know what was, because what is real? Do you know what I mean? Like, because what I've noticed some of us doing, and it's understandable, is we see the matrix as this overlay that happened here on Earth. But now my super soldier experiences, that's real. Now they look more real. They do. I mean, your visual acuity when you leave this planet becomes way better. It seems, but is that just a bigger and better program? Is that a Are you graduating from one video game to the next? In other words, like I don't really know.
That's a very authentic and good way of saying it, I think. It's a good way of looking at it because there's a lot of people in this field, they just state everything as facts because they know for sure that they went through this or that. And, how can anybody really know when you went something that's that elusive and that confusing, and people have to retrieve the memories and all of that through therapy or regression, and it takes a long time to deprogram if you've been under mind control too.
It really does. And yeah, I think that all topics have a tendency to coalesce in a narrative. It's just kind of what happens. And I'm hopeful that this community will begin to start peeling away some of there's a bald eagle. Hello. Oh, he's beautiful. At some point, I hope that we can
Wow.
peel. That's pretty sweet, dude. He was huge.
Wow.
Wow.
Amazing, huh?
My heart.
Maybe it's a little sign for you.
I sure hope so. But anyway, I think that we, as a group of people interested in these things and really trying to decode, are going to be ready soon to peel back a couple more layers.
So, in our remaining moments, your book, I Keep Not Dying, and you're also a near-death experiencer. What is the overall content of the book?
So it's really goes back to childhood, all of my paranormal experiences, kind of in a linear way, but weaving through there are these philosophical themes that were my little attempt to ask questions about even my own experiences, just kind of like what we just encapsulated. So I put in there pretty distinctly at the beginning that I don't know the extent to which my experiences are the result of what I asked out of the game. I could have set this stuff up. I don't know to the extent that I am culpable culpable being like, I asked for these challenges. And to what extent my behavior allowed some of the negative stuff in to get past it. When you're in the middle of feeling like something's attacking you, it's very difficult to rise above that. But now that I've cleared that, I'm actually glad and thankful for every bad experience I've ever had, because it's helped me to come to a new place. So there's comedy in this book, and it coalesces at the end of this sort of crescendo with the cars thing, because that's one of the most insane things that I've ever heard anyone go through. And I literally have proof, like all of the records are right there. And, but there's this very happy tilt at the end towards where I think we can use our experiences to our advantage.
So your near-death experience, I mean, just briefly, can you just say what did you see? You claim that you died or went out of your body?
I didn't know that that happened. So I had an outro of the experience because I became reassembled back into my body. So that much I had conscious memory of. The amount of energy that appeared from these reassembled atoms, or from every stretch of the cosmos, came back, and I just burst out like with energy and confidence. That's not how you would feel if you were just on intravenous drugs for several hours. I had boundless energy. It wasn't until I got regressed that I saw the dissipation of those, and it was a death in a way. I did not see the light. I actually was granted what I wished for, which was to return to source. It felt so close to being everything and nothing at the same time. So my actual belief at the time of this event was that I'm returning to dust, or to everything, because where everything and nothing meet is where it's at. And that's those moments of clarity and meditation where everything just disappears and there is no you for that brief second. That's kind of where I was.
And if everything is holographic anyway, and we are in a holographic illusion or simulation, or in this holographic matrix, and we're holographic in structure and nature also, then that makes sense in a way.
It does. It absolutely does. And I don't know, I even question the matrix sometimes. Like, what if there are just limitations on our ability to see into the nature of things that scramble it out? And then people go, there's no matter. But what if the program is just scrambling so you can't see how it works? Like, we just kind of don't know.
So do you think that source or the force or what people call God, do you think that's actually AI?
I don't think so. So as I whittled down my own connection, my way of getting to that connection, I have shaved off more and more words, more and more concepts, and more things. And I'm reduced now to love. That is the only sheer bad. I used to say love and light. Well, no, I don't use light anymore at all. Light can be synthetic. The realest thing I know, the only perfectly real thing I know, is love. And so I pray to love. I do not anthropomorphize it. I do not turn it into a man or a woman or a goddess or a god. To me, love is the only pure thing, and that's the safest place. And it's so pure when you look into a child's eyes. When a puppy comes running up to you, it's your heart melts up. That is what I'm interested in. And that doesn't need to be defined.
Well, is that also your main message for people watching this? Or what would be your main message for people having heard just a bit of your story today?
Yeah, I guess the main takeaway that I would wish for people who are experiencing any sort of interruptions in their life, any things that they seem to be setting them off course in an artificial way, or are having a hard time bringing their experiences into focus, is on a practical level, try to clean up any habits that could be allowing negative in, to the extent that you are able. You don't need it. You don't need drugs. You don't need ayahuasca. You don't need alcohol. You don't need these things. So cut the clearest path for you and reduce it down to its simplest form, which is love, which is foolproof. We don't have to have a name. Anytime you name all that is, you've made it smaller.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful message and very, very true, I think. Very true. If people want to get a copy or purchase your book, how can they do so?
Ben Gordon, I Keep Not Dying is the name. It's on Amazon. And then hopefully I sent you a bunch of other links to my website. I also offer services. If people are battling with entity attachment, I do not charge exorbitant fees. I charge what I charge for guitar lessons. I will never raise the price. If you don't have enough money, we can work it out.
So people, if they have entity attachment or something, feel that they are invaded or something by archons or other whatever beings, they can contact you because you have the ability for people to get rid of them, or what?
I do, and I do have advice for little nudges and little things that they might want to adjust. So 80% of it is minor tweaks in the way we're running our lives. And then I can actually remove some things from any distance as well. But we need to loosen, the person needs to be loosened up a little bit, but they could go to ikeepnotdying.com to send an initial hello email, and we can work it out from there. Yeah.
Great. So the book is I Keep Not Dying by Benjamin Gordon. And Benjamin Gordon, thank you so much for being on Age of Truth TV.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for such a great time.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Benjamin Gordon, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website, ageoftruth.tv as well. Please also subscribe to our alternative channels on BitChute and Brighteon. Your support is very needed and very appreciated. And on behalf of the Age of Truth TV team, we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.